So Ella and Kevin and I were driving in Gulu, and we were noticing all the opportunities for development and also the gaps. And one gap that we noticed was that there was nothing in the area for kids, like no safe space where they could really go after school or on weekends. And there was also nothing or very little with computer education or arts education. And as was mentioned before, I work in music tech and I also DJ. So the intersection of technology and arts is something that I'm very personally oriented around. And so Kevin and Ella and I decided together to co-found the organization Hope Center Uganda. And what we do is provide a safe space and tools to help youth become leaders and problem solvers and game changers. And that's why our kind of slogan is "We are hope," not we provide hope, we bring hope, but we are hope, because we believe that you and me and everyone has this in them, and you just have to give a person the right tools and they can become a leader for their community, their country, and their world. It's just a matter of providing them the space and the tools. So our program so far, the first program we started was an education program. And we started originally with just weekly free English classes for kids, and then we grew that to include computer studies. We noticed that 50% of our students, or more than 50% of our students were girls, but all those girls were missing class once a month because of their periods. So we started our Girl Power program to provide menstrual health and first distributed disposable sanitary pads, and then we started teaching women how to make their own reusable pads. And then we started our Uplift program, which helps women grow their small businesses with loans, and those loans give us interest, and that is one small source of revenue that is hopefully one day going to help us be more self-sustaining. We also did an intervention for nodding syndrome, which was a really tough project. Nodding syndrome is a neurodegenerative disease in Uganda, and they don't know the causes of it, but it impacts certain areas really heavily, and there was a care center for it that was going to close. So we fundraised to provide some simple Band-Aid funding for the 6-month period until they could remain open. But I'm more talking about the overall approaches that we take with our programs. So grassroots approaches to multifaceted development and post-conflict communities. And these are the things that we hope could be applied in other similar centers and areas around the world. So first, defining development. I feel like in modern society, a lot of the times we mostly look at economic development, so things like GDP, poverty, unemployment rates, literacy rates, but actually we focus a lot on cultural and social development, which again is still really broad, but focusing on things like artistic development, equality, expression, both self-expression and expression of a culture. And we think that these things lead into development of human capacity or entrepreneurship, and that is something that ties into economic development as well. So this is a quote, eliminating poverty is a question of removing the barriers faced by poor people to unleash their creativity to solve their problems. And here we have a picture of, this is actually Grace. She's one of the program coordinators for our women's microcredit program. You can see it looks like she's counting money, like just counting stacks, but it's a loan. And you see a phone in her lap as well, so that shows that kind of the initial barriers to entry are a lot of the times communications or access to technology, and the original like microfinance small loan that people need to get a business off the ground. So grassroots approaches, again, is kind of a vague term that's tossed around a lot. By this, we really mean partnerships. We have a lot of local partnerships with local organizations. Our employees are members of the community. They have been there forever. They are really tightly knit, and it really helps us have kind of a two-way dialogue between our employees and the community members and the beneficiaries that they serve. And yeah, so the three kind of aspects of development that we'll be talking about here are cultural, social, and economic, and kind of how they tie into each other. Also, I'm going to say now that mostly with social development, I'm talking about like human capacity development, like an individual's development in a social way. So cultural development, three things to look at is tradition, influence, and identity, and how those things are intertwined. And I think this is really clear in Gulu through how big hip-hop culture has become there. Of course, dance is really big in a lot of, if not all, of African cultures. But the influence of the West has brought hip-hop culture in, and it's really become a part of Gulu's identity, also because hip-hop culture really resonates with the idea of the come up of an underdog and overcoming a lot of challenges, which northern Uganda has seen plenty of. So for this, we address by providing our arts programs, which are done in partnerships with local arts collective. So we try and combine creativity and tradition by working with these local collectives. And as well, this happens with when we bring in new technologies, we always try and teach them to the local leaders of these collectives who are teaching our programs, rather than teaching them directly to the kids, so that we can make sure that things are taught in a way where the local culture is still encouraged, and that we're not just coming in with new technologies and just dumping them. And I put this under cultural development, but it really goes under all. So with equality, we always are trying to uplift groups that have been marginalized. For example, we work with primarily women, refugees, and the nodding syndrome is another example of a group that has faced a lot of taboo. So these are the groups we kind of tried to go out of our way to help. So social development, again, I'm talking more about personal growth, things like leadership, expression, and then how those things can contribute overall to a stronger community and stronger community members. Three things that we really try and instill in our kids is accountability, teamwork, and creativity. Accountability is a huge one because it's not always something that you see from role models in the community or in the government or in the police, especially in northern Uganda. So we think it's really important to make sure that that is given a lot of value and importance. So talking about human capacity and what we mean by human capacity development, basically problem solving, creativity, teamwork, the kind of facets of entrepreneurship, of thinking outside the box, of instead of looking for, a product to sell, looking for a problem to solve and looking for gaps where there's opportunities to create solutions. And accountability and expression, I think, go towards leadership. Especially girls and women in northern Uganda, like culturally have not been encouraged to speak up. So a big thing is trying to make sure that we really have that safe space where they can share how they feel and share their ideas, because at the end of the day, that's 50% of the population that's not speaking up and has a huge amount of potential. And we also teach vocational skills like computer classes, sewing classes, craftsmanship classes, and as well as mental health practice. We do family counseling, individual counseling, and we also do meditation and yoga to provide self-sufficient kind of ways that people can take care of their minds. And economic development, I will mostly talk about in relation to our microfinance program called Uplift. Here, the big words are empowerment and sustainability. And it's worth noting that economic development doesn't always happen in the grand ways that we might imagine it. For a lot of people, it starts with a small loan and a small opportunity, like what we might think is a small opportunity. So basically the way that we encourage entrepreneurship with our programs is so women will get together in groups and they will apply for loans, and after they've been accepted, they will go through a training in financial literacy and basic business skill workshops, so things like personal savings, marketing, things like that. And the women in the program also all agree that they will uphold like some certain rights, like they will take care of their families, they will send their kids to school, things like that. And because everyone's working in groups and the community is so tightly knit along with our employees, we think that helps with our accountability, and so far it does, because we've had 100% payback rate on all the loans. And yeah, just going to say again that we're focusing on more youth and more women, because these are the groups that aren't given necessarily the space to speak up. So they are the ones that we really notice the untapped potential, and that's what we're trying to access. And I also, here's Kevin here. Yay. So you'll talk to her later on Skype. But we really try and lead by example, especially when it comes to things like accountability. We're super transparent, we're super honest with the community, and we are very aware that there's often not good role models for things like accountability in the area where we work. And we also lead by example with empowering women, because right now our staff is all women. It's 4 women. We are open to men applying, but so far we are 4 women. And we also lead by example with empowering youth as much as we can, because whenever there's youth who are super involved with our programs, who are really interested, who are spending all their time volunteering at the center, we try and bring them on as paid volunteers and give them volunteer allowances, or try and bring them on to be project ambassadors or other ways that they can really help in the community and help us and help them. So yeah, here's some numbers. So 4 full-time Ugandan staff, Kevin and 3 coordinators that she works with. With Project Uplift, we've reached 1,500 women, and the average household size in Uganda is 7. So I think that's 9,500 people that we estimate have been affected by our program. So far, we've had 100% payback on microcredit loans from the women in Uplift. And another number we're super pumped about is that we've had 100% school retention for the kids that are involved in our kind of extracurricular education programs. And the reason I'm extra excited about the 100 number for this is because probably 80% of the girls, or 80% of the students in this program are girls, and for girls to be able to stay in school all the way through high school is not the norm in northern Uganda or in Gulu where we're working. So the fact that we've been able to support these youth, but the girls especially, to reach a goal that they probably wouldn't have otherwise been able to achieve is really important for us. And we've reached a total of 1,746 girls with menstrual and reproductive health education. So that includes girls who come to our center, and then we've also done outreach programs in refugee camps, in other nearby villages, and in local primary and secondary schools. And so we're stepping towards sustainability. We are a really young organization, and at the present moment, we have very low operating costs, but we are not self-sustainable. Our income, primarily, like the local sources of income, would be the interest on loans, which right now goes back into providing more loans, but could eventually help cover costs. We had the pad production, which again wasn't very profitable. We actually didn't even break even with the first round of producing pads. And fees for things like the computer classes, which again is pretty nominal. So the main source of funding right now comes from fundraising, like on this side. So I do a lot of events, and it's a lot of donor reach out. But in the future, locally in Uganda, we're hoping to do more in hospitality by starting a cafe, because we already have the center, we already have Wi-Fi. It's really just an issue, and we already have the staff. It's really like an issue of getting a coffee machine. And agriculture, Uganda's number one industry is agriculture, both for export and internally. But in northern Uganda, most of the land is being used for like petty farming. It's just farmers doing subsistence farming because no one has access to a big enough piece of land to grow cash crops. So we're really looking at ways that we can tap into this and perhaps do like a land share program and get members of the community involved so we could start growing cash crops and everyone could be making more of a profit. And ideally, we would be able to cover our operating costs. And then also in future, we're always looking for corporate sponsorships and grants. Of course, as anyone in the nonprofit world knows, it is always a struggle to get grants. And speaking of events, tonight I am doing a fundraiser. Anyone should come. It's in Neukölln at a bar called Same Heads. And we're showing some short films, followed by a feature film, followed by DJ sets, and it'll be open decks. So if anyone's a DJ, you can come and play, and I'll be playing. And all the money's going to go to Hope Center. I do a lot of these. That's probably our biggest source of funding is the events. And that's all from me. Thank you. And now we Skype Kevin.
Hello?
Hello. I think
Yes.
working now. Yay.
Oh, thank you. So, I can start off?
Yeah.
Okay. Like I said, my name is Kevin Okumu. I'm the program director for Hope Center Uganda. It is based in northern Uganda, in Gulu. It's one of the regions in Uganda which was greatly affected by the 24 years civil war. I'm a single mother, a mother of 2 biological children, and I've adopted 1 orphan, so I have 3 children under my custody, and I'm very proud as a single mother I can be there for them. I started working in NGO in 2009. It was a women program empowering mothers and girl child. And it was basically on microfinance. And at that time, I worked from 2009 till 2012. And then in 2013, I got another job with Volunteer Action Network. Still, it was on women empowerment and girl child education. And I worked there till 2017 when I resigned from my work because I needed to work with Hope Center and see the organization reach as many communities as much as they could. So with Hope Center Uganda, we are doing quite amazing projects. And one of the biggest projects is the Uplift Project, which supports women. We have supported thousands of women with the microfinance and the business skill training. And the whole idea for the microfinance is to ensure that the families are able to support themselves, especially the mothers. They are pillars for their household. And we wanted them to really stand and provide for the families. So we purely and we honestly put our energy to ensure that we reach women. In northern Uganda, we have an average of 7 members per household. So if you support one mother, you're indirectly supporting 7 other households in that particular home. And as a result of this Uplift project or the microfinance, many of them were able to pay school fees, provide food, meet the medical bills, and also meet their personal needs, like maybe the detergents, they need other extra monies for their own use. The women were able to raise and stand on their own. We have cases where women have invested their monies in construction, simple huts, and putting on simple building that can really be like a decent accommodation. Out of the profit they make, they were able to really do a lot for their homes with the money they receive. The program does not only look at business, but it also looks at the home management component. We tend to leave out, most of people tend to leave out the culture or the manners or the social aspect, how a woman should behave at home. So we are doing a lot of training in that and ensuring that we control the high level of gender-based violence, which has caused so many breakups, which has caused so many level of child negligence, because once a mother has left home, meaning that child will remain either with a stepmom or with a grandma or with a dad. And dads are good, but sometimes they're not so much perfect when it comes to managing children. So we try to really bridge that gap so much, especially with the women we work with. And we have the Girl Power Project. It's a reproductive program which looks into education, and then we do a lot of trainings in reproductive health and sexual reproductive program. And in this, we also provide sanitary pads. We have reached 1,000, we have already reached 1,600, roughly 1,600 girls with the reproductive health program. We have directly supplied them with sanitary pads. They're reusable, and these girls can use these pads for a maximum of 1.5 years. So all the girls who receive the pads, they're able to access education, they're able to manage their periods when they're in school, and they're able to concentrate while at school. And in this project, it's a little bit technical because most of these girls, they are not really taken through the basic menstruation lessons by their mothers. Besides, the mothers are illiterate. They cannot put their girls and sensitize them. There is a lot of norms in our culture, so people don't want to talk about menstruation periods. And as a result of this, it is affecting so many girls, and the only time they can get access to this education is when they are in school. And Hope Center has done a very big role in ensuring that both the girls get the basic education about menstruation period, as far as their mothers also get the same education. So the program is, it has really impacted so many households, both at school and then at home, because the pads are taken by all the clients we have in our program. However, we are trying to look at the sustainable goal, how we can make it more effective, how we can make it reach various parts of schools in northern Uganda, because we have so many schools, we have so many kids who are lacking the services, they need it. So we are trying to work so hard to ensure that we reach as many girls as we can with the Girl Power project. Another one unique project that we are handling, music, dance, art, DJ, and drama. It's one of the unique of its kind. In African context or culture, so many families tend to ignore, or they look at music or dances as something for the spoiled children. And even if it is for the spoiled children, they're very specific. They think music, dances, and drama is a boys' or a men's activity, not for girls. So Hope Center is trying to bring up number of girls to learn how to do the DJ classes, participate in dances, and the dances are normally based on documentaries and storytellings. And of course, it is a true storytelling. And the dances focus especially on educating the community, the youth, the children. So it's one inspiring thing that has attracted a number of local leaders, because all the informations, all the issues the youth feel is affecting them is addressed through the music and the dances. And apparently we have 6 girls who are so good at doing the DJ work and the dances. And we are doing a partnership with WEWA. WEWA is a non-profit. And we have raised these girls to that level, and we want to ensure in future they should have their own studio where they can be role models and ambassadors for fellow girls out there, to make them realize as long as you want to achieve something, you should work hard and focus towards achieving it. And then we have the literacy program. In our literacy program, we target our children between ages 5 to 15, and we are basically doing English languages at the moment. When you hear my English, it sounds like English, but I think it's just a bit of it. So we are very poor in English speaking. So we are trying to see that at least the new generation, they become a little bit fluent, and they can learn something, and in future, whether they go to school or they don't go to school, they're able to honestly and purely communicate and do any other skill they want to achieve. Because without English, apparently in Africa, you have no future. So we are really ensuring that they should learn, they should put it in practice, they should get into skill activities. And of course, when they, for example, if they can speak English, they can start up maybe a workshop, they can do computer repairs, and they can easily communicate when it comes into those small activities. And still in the literacy program, we are looking a lot in the codes of conduct, especially for the children. Some of these children are total orphans. They even don't have anybody to guide them, teach them with manners or how to behave. So the organization is working so hard to ensure that we instill discipline, we instill manners, and we make these children have morals, so that when they're out there, they behave like any other child would behave if he or she had a mother along with him. And due to that, we have reached 450 kids who have benefited from the literacy program. And most of them have gone to upper classes. And even those who went to secondary level or the college level, they still come back at the center and hang with us, because they feel that is where their foundation or their basis started from. And in our last year's results, or the primary living examination of last year, 4 children from Hope Center Uganda sat in the different government schools, and all of them performed so well, at least with the second class, in their English languages. And that is the pride we really want to see happening in the community. And lastly, we are doing a project with the nodding syndrome. The nodding syndrome is a disease which affects children, and it's a very sensitive issue that I really wouldn't want to talk much on it, because it's one rare project that nobody wants to do it. But the organization has taken the risk to really support these children. These children are very vulnerable, and when you're supporting them, it's basically charity support without any expectation of them recovering. But the organization does not want to see these innocent children. As much as they don't have life, we intend to give them hope. As the organization always say, we are hope. So we feel that when we give them the hope that they will still live, it makes them move to the next day, see the next day, till when the right days for their time to go comes. So basically, those are the projects we are running in Hope Center Uganda. And of course, it's just a preliminary comments I've given, but if we are to go into the details, it's a very long information that I would really deliver. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Do you guys have any questions?
Yes.
Questions or comments? Anything you'd like to add? Okay, please. If you can stand up also, so maybe we can see you on Skype.
Yeah.
And introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Lance. I'm studying economics and development.
A little louder too, so the computer.
Oh,
Try to
go there.
Yeah.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi.
Hi. My name is Lance. I'm studying economics and development, and I just wanted to ask, for all of the projects, like going to the bank and everything, is it really difficult, especially with women leading these projects? Is it really difficult for you guys to get the loans from the banks, or are you experiencing a lot of difficulty maybe from the government, or how does that kind of work? Like, are the banks working well with you? How are they kind of working with your organization?
Before answering, can I make you quite an aspect? Can you put your mobile in landscape instead in portrait? We will see you better. Just, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your amazing question. It is very challenging to access loans in the banks in our country. First of all, the interest rate is very high for a rural woman to access these services. And then when these women go to the bank will ask them to put a mortgage or a collateral, which they don't have. So the organization, of course, has a good relationship with the bank because we do our banking with them, which is not a big issue. But the issue is with a rural woman who has never been in town, that illiterate mother who does not know how to read and write. So the organization has taken the lead to bridge that gap, take the services to the rural areas where these mothers cannot access the financial services. And then we give very minimal interest rate, very minimal. When I say minimal, it's really minimal. And the reason why we put the minimal interest rate, because we want to meet the administrative costs. For example, gas or petrol to go to the community, we need to coordinate with them. So some of those monies you cannot ask them from a donor. A donor will not feel comfortable giving me funding for airtime. But they'll be comfortable funding a mother who is going to receive the money directly. So the organization put that small interest to meet those small administrative costs, and we don't ask them for any collateral. The only collateral we have with them is the personal relationship between the staff and the community. We have built it so strong that a mother, when sees Kevin coming, should walk to me and trust me, and I'll walk to them and trust them. Then another mechanism to create that bridge for the collateral, we make sure that all these mothers are in two groups, and then the groups stand as a security for each other. So that has created that unity, it has created that love, and it has created that togetherness where even if one person does not have a loan, the rest of the members pay for the money given to that member. With or without their money, they stand as one and they stand as a team. And maybe to add on that a bit, the banks do not really go to these villages. So meaning for somebody to come to the bank will ask them to first deposit a payment before they access the loan. They'll have to pay for transport and the distance is far. You find someone spending over $30 just to process a loan of maybe $50, which does not make any sense. So we are working so hard to ensure that we give the best services to these mothers. Probably the only challenge that we have is the demand is high for the services, but the organization cannot reach all of them. But the services we are giving them is really excellent. I don't know if I've answered you.
Yeah, you did. Thank you.
Thank you.